Have you ever put an offer in on a house only to find out that you actually not only lost the bid, but the person who won the bid offered just slightly less than you, and you just can't figure out what you are doing wrong? Well, today we are going to talk about some things you can do to craft a really strong offer that have nothing to do with the purchase price. So stay tuned. Hello, my name is Violet. I'm a real estate agent living and working in the beautiful Twin Cities of Minnesota. I believe that the buying and selling process should be an amazing experience. I love working with individuals who value killer customer service and awesome communication. And I'm also a huge dog lover. So if you're thinking about moving to the Twin Cities, or maybe you already live here, but you're interested in any of these topics, I hope you do push subscribe down below. I'm going to be releasing a lot of really awesome content, and I hope you'll hang out with me here. But for today's video, let's get started. All right, now a few key points before we get started. I want to make sure that you understand that these tips I'm going to give you they really work best when they are paired with a very solid monetary offer. These are not really standalone things, so you can't have like a weak monetary offer and then try and add these things on and think you're going to win the bid. These are just kind of like the icing on the cake to make your offer really stand out, almost irresistible to sellers. So I think it's just important to say that from the beginning. The other thing I want you to remember when you are working with your real estate agent, that when you are crafting an offer for the seller, you really have to appeal to their emotional side. We have to try to figure out what their motivation is. It is not always about money. I mean, I think that is the thing that sometimes people forget. The goal here is to get from escrow to closing, right? So the first tip I have for you is to make sure that from the get-go, you are putting out your best monetary offer. Now, I know I said that these tips weren't going to have to do with the purchase price and monetary offer, but just bear with me here because I just think it's important to say that you only have one chance to make your best offer. You may not get an opportunity to counter that offer. So just make sure you know your numbers, make sure you're running through them with your lender, and that you know that you absolutely feel comfortable. This is what I want to offer. This is the max that I could go. Just go all in from the beginning. And again, just make sure that your first offer is your strongest offer and your best offer. All right? Okay, so let's go on from there. The second tip that I will give you, and what I would do if you were my buyer, is I would say that you need to make sure that your agent is calling the listing agent before they are submitting your offer. This is so important. I cannot stress enough how important this is. Your agent needs to be on the phone with the listing agent. You need to be asking them things. You know, what is the seller's motivation for selling? What is going to make this offer really irresistible to the seller? When are they wanting to close this deal and move on to their next thing? And you know, you can find out, or your agent can find out, a lot of information in a very short conversation. And any good agent is going to be calling that listing agent and reaching out and trying to not only build that relationship with the other agent, but just find out those little bits of information. Now, I will say that some listing agents will be very tight-lipped and they may not give you a lot of information, but you just really cannot let your agent skip this step. It is imperative that they are at least making an effort to go to bat for you. The next thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at the closing date. This is one thing that I don't think a lot of buyers really think about. And a typical closing date is like 30, 45 days out, but there are times when a shorter closing date was going to be a lot more desirable to the seller. They may have already bought another home, or put a purchase offer on another home, that their contract over here is contingent on them selling the home that they're in. So they really need to make things happen. Or they might be needing to move for a job or just whatever. They might have a reason why they just want the close on the house to happen sooner rather than later. And you can also look at this on the flip side. They may need more time. A lot of people out there have pre-approval letters to buy that are contingent upon them selling their current home. So maybe they haven't got out and bought a new home and they're just needing to sell the one they're in so that they can then start looking for a new home. Now, in those cases, those people might want to stay in the house longer. You want to make sure that if you're doing shorter closing dates, that you are having conversations with the title people and with your lenders to make sure that everybody can get all the work done that they need to get done. This is not just a number that you and your agent throw out. The third thing that you can put into your offer is you can do what is called free lease back. And that is where you say, hey, I'm going to buy this house from you, but I'm going to let you live in it after I own it for X amount of days rent-free. I mean, this sounds pretty amazing, right? And this would be one of those instances where if your agent had the phone call with the listing agent and we found out that Mr. and Mrs. Seller, they are needing to buy a new house and they haven't bought a new house yet, they may find that extra time to be able to live in the home rent-free pretty irresistible. Now, if you're not willing to let them live in your brand new home rent-free, you can at least offer them some leaseback options where you'll say, hey, I'm going to buy the house. It's going to be my house, but I will let you live in this house for X amount of time for X amount of dollars. Both of these can create a really strong, almost irresistible offer. I mean, you can absolutely see where this would just be like a huge benefit to the seller, right? I mean, who doesn't love not having to move right away and free rent? I mean, it's like, I want free rent. Anyway, so, and the next reason I have for you is you can do a shorter inspection period. Now, this is sometimes called an option period, a due diligence period. It's called a lot of different things in different parts of the country. But basically, this is usually 7 to 14 days. I think like average is 10. And that's when you, the contract is accepted. Then it's like, okay, well, you have 7 to 14 days to get your inspection done, to look at the HOA documents, to read all the seller's disclosures, to order your appraisal, to get your insurance. You know, you have all that time in that window to do your due diligence as the buyer. And here is the key thing here. Normally, that time of window, that's when you as the buyer can back out of the contract without losing your earnest money. So this is a really important time for buyers. And again, these are normally like 7 to 14 days. I see an average about 10 days. But if you wanted to create a really strong offer, you could speed that up. I've seen 3 days. You know, you could make it 2 days. You do have to be very careful about this because if you have stuff to get done in those 2 days, you need to make sure you can get it done. But it is quite common, especially in the seller's market that we are in right now, to see those option periods, inspection periods shortened. But again, just be really, really careful here because this is kind of some risky area for where if things aren't done properly, you could potentially lose some earnest money. And this is kind of your free out. So another thing you can do is you can offer up the most amount of earnest money possible, like just right out of the gate. Usually earnest money is 1%. And so if you were to just offer 10, 20, I don't know, just offer the most that you can, just front load that offer with all of your earnest money. Now, again, I say this every time I talk about earnest money, you want to be very, very, very careful about how you are handling the rest of the contract because you can lose earnest money. Put all that earnest money up front, right? Because a lot of it is going to come back to you, or all of it's going to come back to you at closing. So all that money you have saved for your closing costs, all of that stuff, just put it right up there. And that basically just is like, hey, Mr. Seller, I am like so serious. Like, I am dead serious. I am confident that I have really strong financing. I am just like so confident that this deal is going to be tight and it's going to go all the way through, that I'm just going to put all my cards on the table from the very beginning. So let's do this thing, right? Okay, so that's awesome. That's one thing you can do. Okay, question of the day. If you have bought a house in the past, what did you put into your offer to try to sweeten the deal for the seller? And also, if you are enjoying this content, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. I would really, really, really appreciate it. Okay, so let's get back to it. So another thing you can do to create a really strong offer is, so you have to think of it from the seller's point of view. They want to make sure that the offer they accept is going to go all the way to the closing table, that there aren't going to be bumps and hiccups, or the deal's not going to fall out. So what's one way you can do that? You can not only have your pre-approval letter, which you should already have already, but you can go back to your lender very quickly and say, this is the house I want to make an offer on, XYZ Main Street, and I'm going to offer this much. And you're going to have your lender craft a pre-approval letter with that address on the letter and for the amount you are offering. And this is like, attention to detail, looks so good to the seller. It's like, not only are these people pre-approved, but they are pre-approved to buy my house for the amount that they offered me. Like, this is amazing. It's just kind of like, showing the notes when you wrote the big research paper. I don't know, maybe that's not a really good analogy, but you get it, right? Like, that makes sense. So this is a really cool way to just show that you are serious. And I will say, the reason you want to have your lender put on there the amount you were offering for the house, let's say the house, you're approved for $230,000. The house is $200,000 and you're going to offer $215,000. You don't want the letter to say that you're pre-approved for the full $230,000, even though you are, because you don't want to give the seller any type of indication that you can afford more than you're offering. So this is very important. When you get that letter specific to the address, make sure it has exactly the amount that you are offering, not the full amount you were pre-approved for. Okay, got it? Good. Another thing that you can do is you can have the lender call the listing agent. I mean, I know these poor listing agents, I think sometimes they just must get like just hundreds of calls, and again, maybe they won't answer, maybe they won't respond, maybe they won't give up any information, but you can at least try. And the reason you're having the lender call the listing agent is because your lender is going to say, hey, I have fully vetted these people. I know without a doubt that they are more than qualified to buy this home, that all of their T's are crossed, all of their I's are dotted, and they are ready to go. I am the lender and I know that this is a good deal. I mean, that makes it, again, just really irresistible for the seller when they're comparing your offer to multiple other offers. Okay, and two more things. So the other thing you can do is that you just want to make sure you're not asking for anything from the seller. Like, you're not asking for anything. Now, in a buyer's market, you can be like, hey, Mr. Seller, I really want you to remove that old dumpy car from the backyard because I don't want to be responsible for moving it and it's your responsibility. So you better get out of here before I buy this house. Okay? Okay. Well, you don't want to do that in a crazy competitive market, or if you're just trying to put in a really competitive offer. Basically, you don't want to scare the seller away. You just are like, I don't want anything from you except to buy your house. That's it. That's all I want from you. I don't I don't want you to take anything, move anything, clean anything, like whatever. Just give me the house and I'll deal with the rest later. So it's just as simple as it sounds. Make sure you are not asking the seller to do anything special for you. You don't want them to paint, none of that, okay? So, and then that kind of leads me into the next point, and that is inspections. So you're gonna get your inspection done, because I do not think you should skip an inspection. I will never advise you of that. So you're gonna get your inspection done, but then you have to decide, you know, like in a more normal, even market, you might go back to the seller and be like, hey, well, the inspection showed that this needed to be fixed or this needed to be fixed. And so I want you to fix that. And if you fix that, then I'm gonna go ahead and keep going with this offer. If you don't fix it, I'm gonna like walk away, right? And so that's in a normal situation. But in a situation where you need to be really competitive, you can say like, hey, the inspection period is just for informational purposes for me, the buyer. And usually the lender does require an inspection to give you the money. So you kind of have to do the inspection in those cases. But it's just like, I just want to see what's up with this house. But I'm not going to like ask you to fix anything, Mr. Seller. So let me do the inspection. Let me do my due diligence. But I'm not going to ask you to fix anything. Now, you can still do you're still in your due diligence period when all of that is happening. So you can still walk away and be fine and get your earnest money back and just be like, I don't want to do this. So this is how it happens. You put the purchase order in, your offer is accepted, you order the inspection. The inspector shows something really horrifying and you're like, oh, I don't want to buy this house anymore. You just walk away. It's still the same thing. You're just not asking the seller to remediate or do anything based upon the results you find from the inspection. You can also say that I, the buyer, will take care of any repairs that are priced $2,000 and under. You know, anything, you know, $2,000 and under, I'll just deal with. I'll just take care of it. Don't worry about Mr. Seller. And so that still gives you a little bit of a peace of mind that if it's some sort of something major, you can still put it back on the seller or have that negotiating. That's a little more tricky to do in a really competitive seller's market, but if that just makes you feel a little bit more confident, you can do that as well. So I think that should help you. I know there are probably a dozen other things out there that I did not include in this video that you can do. So these are just some things to start thinking about ways that you can be just really creative with your offer. You do want to make sure you are always checking your state laws. They do vary state by state as to what you can and can't do in these situations. But these are just kind of some of the basic ones that I think that you can do, and that will help you to just make your offer look a little bit sweeter. And if you just remember that we're trying to appeal to the seller's emotional side, we're trying to figure out what their motivation is for moving, and we're trying to tap into that a little bit, okay? And so it's not always about the money. And if you just keep your head up and you keep these kind of at the front of your mind when you're making that offer with your agent, I know that you will be successful. I hope you have a beautiful day and you make good choices. See you later.